You wake up in the middle of the night. Your room is dark. Your eyes are half open. You don't even think. You get out of bed, walk a few steps, open a door, sit down, flush, wash your hands, and go back to sleep like nothing happened. It is one of the most ordinary things you will do today. But for most of human history, none of that existed. No toilet, no bathroom, no toilet paper, no plumbing, no little fan in the ceiling trying its best, no private door to close behind you. No flush that makes the problem disappear forever. So, what did people actually do? Because humans have always needed food. Humans have always needed sleep. Humans have always needed water. And humans have always needed to go. Which means one of the biggest questions in human history is also one of the most awkward. What did humans do before toilets? For most of our existence, humans were hunter-gatherers. We moved across landscapes in small groups, following animals, seasons, fruit, water, and weather. And this movement solved a problem that later civilizations would spend thousands of years trying to fix. Waste. If you live in one place for a few days and then move somewhere else, human waste does not build up into a massive problem. You go far away from camp. You avoid the place where people sleep. You avoid the place where people eat. You avoid the water source. Then nature handles the rest. This was probably the first sanitation system. Not pipes, not sewers, distance. That sounds too simple, but it worked because early humans were not crowded into cities. There were no apartment blocks, no public markets, no thousands of people packed behind walls. Just small groups of humans moving through very large landscapes. So if you needed to go, you probably walked away from the group. Maybe behind bushes, maybe behind rocks, maybe into tall grass. Maybe to a familiar area everyone knew not to camp near. And then you came back. That was it. No drama, no flush, no porcelain throne. Just distance, dirt, and common sense. And this matters because early humans were not stupid. They may not have understood bacteria or parasites the way we do today, but they understood patterns. They knew bad smells were bad. They knew dirty water could make people sick. They knew you should not leave waste where people sleep. They knew flies were not exactly a good sign. Long before science gave names to germs, humans were already learning from consequences. If a group camped too close to waste and people got sick, they remembered. If a water source made people ill, they avoided it. If one area smelled wrong, they moved away. This is one of the things humans are best at. We notice patterns, we remember, we warn each other. So the earliest bathroom was not a room, it was a rule. Do it away from the camp. Do it away from food. Do it away from water. And then come back. But then something changed. Around 10,000 years ago, humans began settling down. We planted crops. We domesticated animals. We built villages. And for the first time, humans started staying in one place for long periods of time. This changed everything. Because when people stop moving, waste stops disappearing. A small hunter-gatherer camp can walk away from a dirty place. A farming village cannot. The crops are there, the animals are there, the houses are there, the storage pits are there, the people are there, and now everyone's waste is there too. At first, this probably seemed manageable. A few families, a few houses, a few fields. But then villages grew. More food meant more people. More people meant more waste. More waste meant more smell, more flies, more contaminated water, and more disease. This is the moment where the toilet stops being a private convenience and becomes a survival technology. Because once humans created permanent settlements, we also created permanent mess. And if that mess was not handled, it could kill you. Think about what a village actually is. People living close together. Animals living close together. Food stored nearby. Water sources shared by everyone. Children playing in the same ground where waste might be dumped. Rain washing everything downhill. Flies moving from filth to food. Suddenly, one person's bad bathroom habits were not just their problem, they were everyone's problem. This is when humans began needing something more advanced than walk away from camp. They needed systems. Some of the earliest known toilets and drainage systems appear in ancient civilizations. that had one thing in common: crowds. Cities forced humans to solve waste. In Mesopotamia, people built simple drains and pits. In ancient Egypt, wealthy households sometimes had basic toilet seats made from limestone or wood, with sand underneath to collect waste. In the Indus Valley civilization, cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa had surprisingly advanced drainage systems. Many houses had bathing areas and drains that carried wastewater into covered street channels. Think about that. Thousands of years ago, some people already had something that looked more like urban plumbing than random holes in the ground. They had streets, they had drains, they had systems for moving dirty water away from living spaces. This was not just comfort, this was city survival. Because a city without sanitation is basically a disease machine. The more people you put in one place, the more important waste management becomes. And this is where the story gets strange, because some ancient societies became very good at sanitation, and others, even much later, were shockingly bad at it. The Romans are probably the most famous example. They built massive sewer systems. They had public latrines. They had aqueducts bringing water into cities. They had baths. They understood that water could move waste away from crowded places. Roman public toilets were usually long stone or wooden benches with holes cut into them. People sat side by side. No stalls, no privacy. Just a row of people, sitting there together, having what must have been some of the most uncomfortable small talk in human history. Under the seats, flowing water carried waste away. In front of the seats, there was sometimes a small channel of cleaner water. And this is where things get even more uncomfortable. The Romans often used a sponge on a stick, a tersorium. It was basically a shared cleaning tool. You used it, rinsed it, and left it for the next person. Which means the Roman Empire gave the world roads, concrete, aqueducts, law, military organization, and also the public toilet sponge. History is complicated, but to be fair, for the time, Roman sanitation was impressive. A public latrine with running water was a huge improvement over waste piling up in the streets. The problem was that even advanced systems could still spread disease if people did not understand microscopic contamination. They could move waste away, but they did not fully understand what made waste dangerous. Germs were invisible. Parasites were invisible. Contaminated water could look clean. So humans kept making the same mistake again and again. They built bigger cities, but not always cleaner ones. And after the fall of Rome in Western Europe, many urban sanitation systems declined. In medieval towns, things could get disgusting very quickly. People used chamber pots. A chamber pot was basically a bowl or container kept inside the house, often under the bed. At night, instead of leaving the house, you used the pot. Then in the morning, the waste had to go somewhere. Sometimes it was dumped into a cesspit, sometimes into a gutter, sometimes into a street. Sometimes, if you were unlucky enough to be walking below a window at the wrong time, it came from above. This is where you get those old stories of people shouting a warning before throwing waste into the street. Whether every detail of those stories is exaggerated or not, the basic problem was real. Crowded towns smelled terrible. Streets could be filled with mud, animal waste, food scraps, human waste, dirty water, and whatever else people wanted out of their homes. And remember, this was before modern sewage treatment, before germ theory, before clean water systems, before people fully understood that the water they drank could be connected to the waste they dumped. So cities became dangerous, not because people were dirtier by nature, but because cities concentrate everything: people, animals, food, water, disease, and waste. One person living alone in the wilderness has a bathroom problem. 10,000 people living behind city walls have a public health crisis. This is why toilets matter so much. They are not just about privacy. They are about separating humans from the things that make humans sick. And that brings us to another question. What did people use before toilet paper? Because toilet paper is a very modern luxury. For most of history, humans used whatever was available: leaves, grass, moss, hay, water, smooth stones, shells, corn cobs, old cloth, scraps of fabric. In some cultures, water was the main cleaning method, which is still common in many parts of the world today. In colder places, people use snow, which sounds terrible until you remember that the alternative might have been a rough leaf. The truth is, toilet paper is not the default human solution. It is just one solution, a recent one. For most of history, cleaning yourself was local. You used what the environment gave you. If you lived near water, water made sense. If you lived near soft plants, plants made sense. If you lived in a farming community, straw or husks might make sense. If you were rich, you had better materials. If you were poor, you used what you could find. This is another uncomfortable pattern in history. Even the bathroom has always had class divisions. The rich could afford private spaces, servants, better materials, cleaner homes, and more distance from filth. The poor often lived closer to waste, closer to animals, closer to contaminated water, and closer to disease. A toilet was not just a toilet, it was status. A private bathroom meant privacy. Clean water meant safety. Distance from sewage meant health. And for a long time, most people did not have those things. Even in large cities, modern flush toilets did not become common for ordinary people until surprisingly recently. The flush toilet existed in early forms centuries ago, but a toilet is useless without a system to support it. You need water coming in. You need waste going out. You need pipes. You need sewers. You need treatment. You need a city that can handle what happens after the flush. Because the most magical part of a toilet is not the bowl, it is the disappearance. You press a button or pull a handle, and the problem leaves your life. But it does not vanish. It goes somewhere, through pipes, into sewers, into treatment systems, into a hidden world beneath the city that most people never think about. Modern life depends on invisible systems. Electricity in the walls, water in the pipes, internet in the cables, waste under the streets. And because these systems are hidden, we forget how much they protect us. A modern toilet is one of the least respected objects in the home, but it may be one of the biggest reasons cities can exist at all. Without sanitation, every crowded place becomes dangerous. Without clean water, disease spreads. Without sewage systems, waste returns. Without toilets, privacy disappears. And without the simple ability to separate waste from daily life, civilization becomes much harder to maintain. This is why the history of toilets is also the history of cities. Temples are impressive, palaces are impressive, castles are impressive. But the drain may be just as important, because a civilization does not only survive by building monuments, it survives by handling the things nobody wants to talk about. Food has to come in, waste has to go out, and if waste does not go out, everything else eventually falls apart. So the next time you walk into a bathroom half asleep, close the door, sit down, flush, wash your hands, and go back to bed without thinking about it. Remember what that really means. You are using a technology that took humans thousands of years to figure out. A technology built from trial, smell, sickness, embarrassment, engineering, and millions of people learning the hard way that waste cannot stay where humans live. Your ancestors walked away from camp. Farmers dug pits. Ancient cities built drains. Romans sat side by side in public latrines. Medieval families kept chamber pots under their beds. Cities filled with smells they could not control. Then slowly, painfully, humans learned one of civilization's most important lessons. The most powerful inventions are not always the ones that look impressive. Sometimes they are the ones that let you forget a problem ever existed. The toilet is not glamorous. It is not heroic. It is not something people write songs about. But it quietly protects your home, your city, your water, your privacy, and probably your life. Because civilization did not only begin when humans built walls, temples, and empires. It also began when we finally figured out where the waste should go. The toilet is one of the few inventions that only works when nobody has to think about it. And that might be exactly why it's one of humanity's greatest achievements. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe. Thanks for watching.